Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'd like to begin by asking all of you a very simple question. Please raise your hand if you've ever felt confused about your identity as a Pakistani. If you ever felt like you don't properly understand what your identity is, please raise your hand. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, quite a few hands. ठीक है. Seeing all these raised hands takes me back to this very small story. So I have this friend in Peshawar with whom I go on walks every single night, and him and I, we have these discussions on a lot of topics. So one day he comes up to me and he says, Huzaifa, all of us Pakistanis are very confused about our identity. I ask him, why do you feel that way? And he says, well, we're very unsure as to what our identity is. He says that we just don't know what our identity is. And I say, okay. And I proceed to ask him a few questions. I asked him, what language do you speak? And since he is Chatrali the way I am, he told me that he speaks Khwar, the Chatrali language. I say, okay. I asked him, what clothes do you wear? And he said that he's very fond of wearing the shalwar kameez with the pakol, that is the Chatrali topi. I said, okay. I asked him, what food do you eat? And he gave me an answer you can only expect from a person from Peshawar. He said, I eat anything that walks on 4 legs. I said, fair enough, but what specifically? So he mentioned kaldi, which is an indigenous noodle soup from northern Pakistan. He mentioned a few other dishes as well. The last thing that I asked him was, the very last thing that I asked him was, how do you stay in your own home and what music do you listen to? Well, since he is an amateur sitar player himself, he told me that he took the name of some very prominent sitar players from northern Pakistan. So upon listening to all of this, I told him, well, this right here is your identity. The food that you eat, the language that you speak, the clothes that you wear, the music that you listen to is your identity. So then how can you claim that we're unsure of our identity? And to this, he gave me a very interesting answer. He said, Huzaifa, all of this is the Chatrali identity. It is not the Pakistani identity. And that therein, ladies and gentlemen, is where the problem lies. Because what is Pakistan's identity if not the identity of its people? Because if that is not the case, then what does it mean to be Pakistani? What makes us distinct as Pakistanis? Better yet, what unites all of us Pakistanis into a single cohesive body? What unites a yak herder from Gilgit-Baltistan with a fisherman from Gwadar? What unites the wonderful people of Kinnaird sitting in front of me with a Chatrali born and raised in Peshawar? So when you sit down for the very first time and you ponder over this question superficially, the first conclusion that you come to is, well, nothing. Nothing unites us. We're too different from each other. We speak different languages. We're from different parts of the country. We have different likes and dislikes, different foods, different cultures. So we cannot have a cohesive identity, and thus we must not have a cohesive identity. But as you sit down a little more and as you think about it a little more, you start to wonder, well, the country has existed for 75 years, so there must be something that unites us, some invisible binding force that binds all of us together, and there must be some fabrics of our identity that we were never taught about, but they're there, and they bind us all together into a single cohesive body. And that indeed is the case. You see, when we ask our elders about Pakistan's identity, we get the same narratives from the ones that we used to get in school. And regardless of whatever role all of those things played in the creation of Pakistan, I believe that in the highlighting of just those things, we tend to lose 3 very main fabrics of our identity: history, geography, and the mingling of cultures due to history and geography. You see, centuries before Pakistan won its independence, our ancestors were already sharing this piece of land with each other for well near 1,000 years. They fought wars with each other, they married each other, they traveled to each other's lands, they settled in each other's lands, they adopted each other's cultures and influenced each other. That is the reason why when a Pashtun person wants to sit down and listen to some old folk song about lovers meeting near the village stream, they're going to listen to a song written in a poetic tradition known as Tappe, where 2 lines exist of different syllables. But at the very same time, if a group of Punjabi people want to sit down and sing a fast-paced folk song to celebrate a wedding or any other such occasion, they too are going to sing a song in a poetic tradition known as Tappe. So you have Pashtun Tappe and Punjabi Tappe. Pashtuns and Punjabis that we're told must always be at odds with each other and must always be poles apart, share between themselves the name of a beautiful folk poetic tradition. Very similarly, for centuries, when people used to cross the Chenab River here in Punjab, they would always think of Soni, the famous protagonist of the Punjabi folk tragedy Soni Mahiwal, where Soni tragically drowns in the river Chenab while trying to cross it to meet her beloved Izzat Beg, more famously known as Mahimal. But hundreds of miles south in Sindh, one of Sindh's greatest poets, Shah Abdul Latif Bhittai, in his legendary work of Sindhi poetry, the Shahjo Risalo, he mentions the story not as a Punjabi folktale, but rather as a Sindhi folktale, where instead of trying to cross the river Chenab, Soni tries to cross the river Indus. And would you believe it, they even have a tomb for Soni down in Sindh. This mingling of cultures is the reason why for centuries when the bards of Balochistan would sing their famous ballad of the 30-year war between the Rind and Lashari tribes, that story would be incomplete without mentions of Multan, southern Punjab, and the Langa sultans of southern Punjab, who for the very first time welcomed the Baloch people and their famous folk hero Mir Chakar Rind into their territory. And this mingling of cultures is the reason why it is believed to be a king from far away Baltistan who for the very first time played polo on the border of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Gilgit-Baltistan in a place today referred to as Shandur, that is the highest polo ground of the world. Now, the reason I'm telling you all of this is to illustrate to you the fact that centuries before our country won its independence, not only had our ancestors created their own ethnic identities, but they were already influencing each other. They were talking to each other. They were sharing their norms, traditions, stories, and folktales. So when someone asks me, what is Pakistan's identity? Well, Pakistan's identity is the identity of the many ethnic groups that live within Pakistan. The word Pakistani identity is an umbrella term that we use for all the beautiful ethnic identities that exist within this country. The cultures, languages, music, poetry, instruments, cuisines, folk tales, folk poetry of every single beautiful group of people living in Pakistan are all parts of Pakistan's identity. So when a Pashtun person learns to play the rabab, they're promoting the Pashtun identity, and with it, they're promoting Pakistan's identity. When a Punjabi person sits down to write wonderful poetry in Punjabi, they're promoting the Punjabi identity, and through it, they're also promoting Pakistan's identity. Or when a Sindhi person uses block printing to create an ajrak, or when a Chatrali person sews together a pakol, or when a Baloch person wraps the magnificent pugs around their head, they're all promoting their ethnic identities, and through it, they're also promoting Pakistan's identity. Because once again, what is Pakistan's identity if not the identity of its people? Now, all of the things that I mentioned to you today, they all belong to one core fabric of identity, and that is memory. Memory is the power to remember who you are and where you come from. It is the power to show the world that you've persisted across time. It is the power to show the world that it is no one year that defines you, but that your story is as old as storytelling itself. And it is, most importantly, the power to show the world that the legacy of your ancestors, it exists all around you in your daily life. And unfortunately, as Pakistanis, we never learned how to recognize this legacy, and thus we've never represented it to the world. But I'll very briefly show you how it does still exist all around us. It exists in the clothes that we wear, in crafts like Phulkaari present on the beautiful clothes of Pakistani women, a craft that was perfected over the course of centuries by Punjabi women here in Punjab. And there was a time when products bearing Phulkaari work on them were considered as heirlooms passed down from generation to generation. It exists in the blue pottery from Multan that we use to decorate our drawing rooms in our homes, where the pottery belongs to a craft that is known as Kashikari, which originated far away in Iran, but it was perfected here in the Indus Valley. And would you believe it that these tiles and these pottery, they're intrinsic to the tomb architecture of Pakistan, yet we keep them in our homes without knowing of their historical significance. The legacy of our ancestors is even present in our curses. When you refer to someone as ek kodi ka or do kodi ka, we're referencing a time when kodi shells used to be imported from Mauritius to be used as crude currency, when coins made of precious metals such as gold or silver used to run out. They're present in our songs and in our music, where there are entire ragas that are dedicated to the monsoons of South Asia, such as the rag Megh Malar. They're even present in our myths, where every single person from Chatral right down to Karachi grew up listening of stories of back-footed pichal peris that are going to hunt us if we go out at night. The reason that I told you all of this is because all of these things, these crafts, these kahanis, even the curses, they're all part of a legacy that our ancestors have left behind for us. And it is our duty, yours and mine, to show them to the world. I hope through this very brief talk, you'll be able to better connect with your identity and better understand how diverse and how old the identity of our people is. In the end, all that I'd like to say is, you can either tell your own story, or you can let the world tell it for you. And for 75 years, the world has told it for us. It is time for us to find our own voice. Thank you.